Parasitic friendships. This story starts out about a boy trying to make friends. He would often observe the other children making friends easily. So, one day he decided he was going to get himself a friend. Instead of figuring out what interests him, he decided to parasite off of the other children's interests. When that didn't work, he would often give small gifts to get them to stay. It never worked though, they always found somebody better to play with. Someone who they had stuff in common with. And he was always left with an empty feeling inside his chest. This problem continued on until he was a teenager. He thought maybe because he was fat no one took him seriously, so he lost weight. He noticed that he still had no personality, and he thought that they could see that. So, that's the reason why they didn't want to hang out with him. He did notice now that he was a teenager, it was easier to get them to come to him with drugs, but once the drugs wore off, his friends all went away. Still left with that dark spiral after they left. With nothing left, he would often practice conversations in his mirror. He really thought if somebody gave him a chance, he would make them the best of friends. The one real hobby he had was exploring the old river beds. He would never tell anybody this because he figured that they would never understand. One day he came upon an old empty shell of a doll, which strange enough he related to since they both were empty, and then the doll opened its creepy mouth and asked him to do something. In his brain, him doing stuff means friendship. So he asked the doll one question and one question only. "Will you stay by me?" The doll looked at him and replied, "I will always stay by you as long as you do what I ask." It was literally a no-brainer for the boy. This was the best-case scenario. This was true friendship, and he put it in his backpack, knowing his life had now finally begun. He told the doll everything about his anorexia, about him practicing facial expressions in the mirror, pretending not to be himself just to impress people. But today it stops. He made his first real friend. Something that is as empty as him, so he brought it home. He hid it upstairs. He brought a little bit of food. It felt so natural needing somebody to need him. It felt fantastic. Eventually, the doll became stronger. The doll eventually asked for something different, not the normal food. The doll wanted the boy to teach him how to do the face exercises that he practiced in the mirror. This made the boy very happy, because he's been practicing these faces for years, so he knew that he would be the one that could teach him right, teach him how to fake happiness. How to fake scared, how to fake all the emotions that most people usually have. So he propped the doll right on his sink looking at the mirror, and they worked for hours on all those expressions. They knew how to do them. Then the doll turned to him and said it'd be a lot easier if I had skin. So they decided to hatch a plan. They would tell his parents that they were going camping in the woods. This wasn't a lie. They went to the same creek bed that the doll was found in and stayed there for days. They were trapping animals and skinning them. Eventually, they got really good at sewing, and they sewed him a skin suit, made of frogs and bits and pieces of raccoon. They both got so frustrated that he still didn't look human enough. So eventually, the doll turned to the boy and asked to borrow some of his skin. The boy talked to himself saying, "If I let this doll borrow my skin, it will be indebted to me, so it would have to be my friend forever." So he laid there slowly and precisely peeling his stomach to give to the doll, thinking to himself that he would be the only one that could handle something like that, and once he thought of that, the pain went away. He sewed himself back up, and the doll was right. The skin looked perfect on him. People would really think that he had his own friend now, not some crummy old fake doll, a real friend. And all it cost him was a pound of flesh. That was nothing to him. To have his own friend was worth 1,000 pounds of flesh, so they eventually returned to the house. The doll with its brand new skin, and him with a wound that symbolizes friendship to him. When they returned home, he couldn't keep his new friend underneath his bed anymore, so he eventually asked his parents if he could move into the shed. His parents thought that this was a weird request, but they noticed that he seemed to be doing better now. He didn't seem so hollowed to them, so they allowed it. Then one day, the boy came home from school and noticed that the doll was sobbing again. "Yes, doll, what's the problem?" And the doll said, "I would love to be able to see my best friend." And this took the boy by surprise. A wave of emotion came over him. And he knew that the doll wanted some eyes just to see him. He felt like the luckiest boy in the world. He thought to himself, if I only had one eye, that wouldn't be that bad. But then the doll whispered to him, "I don't want your eyes because you're my friend." This was the sweetest thing the boy ever heard, so they came up with a plan to lure somebody in to take their eyes. It was quite easy when he thought about it. All he would have to do was offer some kids some drugs, and they would surely come over. He's done this before when he was looking for friends. So he thought this was a fitting solution because all they used him for was drugs and fun, so it'd be easy just to take one of their eyes, maybe even two. Knowing his days of skinning and sewing animals was worth it. He knew he had the skills necessary to connect some eyeballs. The day finally arrived. They lured a kid from the school to the old creek with promises of drugs and fun times. They delivered, but once that kid was dazed, they struck him over the head and plucked out his eyes. The one thing the boy wasn't planning for was how much this made him feel alive. Once they got the eyes out, they shoved the kid in the same burrow that the doll was found. Then they safely stuck the eyeballs in the doll's head. The doll could now see his best friend's face for the first time, and they both wept. Not because of the friendship, but because they finally found someone that felt the same as them. There was one problem. The doll still had a hole in its chest. They tried to fill it full of leaves, sticks, and whatever they could find in that creek bed. The only thing that would fit was a heart, so they went back to the old creek. Again, trying out all sorts of parts, raccoons, deer, squirrels, anything that they could fit in the void, but the doll said, "The only thing that will fit is the heart in your chest." The kid, with no self-esteem, easily plunged the knife into his own chest, pulled out his own heart, and gave it to his friend. He thought it was a fitting trade, because that friend will always belong to him. And in his final breath, he said, "Are we friends?" And the doll looked at the boy and told him the one thing he did not want to hear. "You're only good for stuff." The boy that gave up everything to have a friend eventually turned into the dried husk that he found on the ground. For the cycle is to start again. The next chapter is called Finding an Identity.